30 grand leaves her Roth on a Tuesday. A year later, the phone rings, and a tax preparer tells Renata the government wants $3,000 of it back as a penalty. She's 63. She paid tax on every dollar that went into that account years ago, and the penalty he's describing should not exist. What he did was reach for the wrong clock. Plenty of people, and that includes plenty of people who do taxes for a living, believe a Roth carries one 5-year rule. It carries two. They guard different money and they start on different dates. Mix them up and you either hand the IRS tax you don't owe or you skip a move worth thousands. That second clock, the one tied to conversions, only ever existed to plug a hole. Picture a 40-year-old with 100 grand parked in a pre-tax IRA. He wants the cash today. If he yanks it straight out, the government charges him income tax plus a 10% early withdrawal penalty for being under 59 and a half. So somebody clever ran the math. Move the pre-tax money into a Roth, pay the income tax on the conversion, then pull it right back out the next morning. No penalty, because now it's Roth money. That trick would have handed every under 59 and a half saver a clean way past the penalty the rest of the tax code spent decades enforcing. So the conversion 5-year rule slammed the door. Convert pre-tax money, and it has to sit 5 years before you can take it back without the 10%. Every separate conversion you ever do starts its own 5-year timer. And that origin is the whole reason the thing falls apart for anyone Renata's age. The conversion clock exists for one job: stopping people from dodging the under 59 and a half penalty. Cross that age, and there's no penalty left to dodge, so the clock has nothing to police. The IRS lays it out in publication 590B. Once you're past 59 and a half, you can pull converted money the day after you convert it, and the 10% never shows up. Renata's penalty, then, is zero. She pulled 30 grand of conversion money at 63. Her preparer fired a tripwire that had disarmed itself 4 years before she ever logged in, which is a rough look for someone who charges money to know this. He owes her an apology and a corrected return. Don't relax yet, because the other clock didn't go anywhere. Call it the earnings clock. It decides whether the growth inside your Roth comes out tax-free, and clearing 59 and a half does nothing for it. The account itself has to be opened 5 years before that growth is clean. Here's where people get burned even in their 60s. Say someone opens a first Roth at 61 by running a conversion, lets it grow, then pulls some of that growth at 63. Past the age line, sure, so no penalty. But the account is 2 years old. The earnings clock isn't satisfied, and the IRS taxes every dollar of growth he takes at his regular income rate. Age cleared the penalty and did nothing about the tax. To get earnings out completely free, you need 2 boxes checked at the same time: 5 years on the account and a qualifying reason. You're 59 and a half or older, or you're disabled, or it's going toward a first home up to $10,000, or your heirs are pulling it after your death. Miss the 5 years and the growth is taxable even when one of those reasons applies. There's a quirk in how the 5 years gets counted, and it tilts your way. The clock doesn't start the day the money lands. It backdates to the 1st of January of the year you first dropped a dollar into any Roth. Open one on the 31st of December, put $50 in, and you've banked most of a year before you even began. Tag a contribution to the prior tax year before the April deadline, and you trim it further. And the earnings clock only has to clear once in your whole life. Once any Roth you own crosses 5 years, Every Roth you open after that is already on the far side of it. Run 2 conversions back to back, one in 2024 and one in 2025, and you're holding 2 separate timers. The first finishes aging on the 1st of January, 2029, and the second, give me a second, the second one started a calendar year later, so it isn't clean until the 1st of January 2030. They count down beside each other on their own schedules. Under 59 and a half, you'd be chasing every one of them with a spreadsheet. Past it, you put the spreadsheet away. This next piece is what turns the whole thing from a minefield into ground a person can cross. Every dollar inside a Roth lives in one of 3 places. There's the money you put in straight off your paycheck, already taxed once. Converted money makes up the second pile, carried over from a pre-tax account with the tax paid at the moment of conversion. On top of both sits the growth, the earnings. When you take money out, you don't get to choose which pile it comes from. The IRS chooses, and the order it forces is, look, the most borrower-friendly thing in this whole corner of the code. Contributions come out first. Always. Every single time. Those dollars already paid their tax on the way in, and neither clock can touch them. So they walk back to you with nothing owed and nobody asking questions. Drain all of them, and only then does the IRS start on conversion money. Oldest conversion first. Earnings come out dead last. Plenty of retirees never get within reach of them. And for this whole calculation, the IRS treats every Roth IRA you own as one combined account. So it doesn't matter which one you physically pull from. That ordering is why age barely registers for a big slice of what people withdraw. Take Dario, 34, a quarter century from retirement. He's been dropping $6,000 a year into his Roth for 8 years, so $48,000 of straight contribution sits in there. A rough patch hits, and he pulls 15 grand. Tax? None. Penalty? None. Doesn't matter that he's decades shy of 60. That 15 is his own contributions coming home, and the clocks never walk into the room. Anyone who's been feeding a Roth for years is sitting on a buffer they have no idea is there. The penalties stay asleep until you've eaten through every contributed dollar and started pulling on conversions or growth. Lay hard numbers over it. Somebody shows up with 50 grand of contributions stacked over a decade. Underneath that, 100 grand of converted money. Riding on top, 25 grand of growth. She pulls 40,000 in 1 year. The full 40 comes out of the contribution pile because there's 50 sitting there to draw on. Nothing taxed. The conversion money and the growth stay put. Pull 60 instead, and the first 50 is still clean contributions, with only the last 10 reaching into conversion money, and past 59 and a half, even that 10 rides free. The single thing that ever throws off a tax bill here is the earnings layer, and you'd owe tax on the whole. Okay, not the whole withdrawal, just the portion that counts as earnings, which is that 25 sitting at the bottom of the stack. One more twist hides inside the conversion pile, too. When the IRS does reach it, the part you paid tax on at conversion comes out ahead of any part you didn't. So the order keeps protecting you even down there. You can keep loading that contribution pile every year on top of all this. For 2026, the ceiling is $7,500 or $8,600 once you've turned 50. Every dollar of it converts into a dollar you can pull back out later with no strings attached. The part nobody warns you about. Your brokerage carries no obligation to track which bucket each of your dollars belongs to. That record keeping lands on you. The day you can't prove the split is the day a withdrawal you were sure was free turns into a standoff, and the IRS defaults to treating money as taxable until you show it otherwise. Now, the one that gets the least airtime and quietly costs people the most. You spend 15 years funneling money into a Roth 401k at work. 15 years of after-tax contributions with growth piling up underneath and the account seasoned and ready to go. You retire, you roll it into a fresh Roth IRA you opened last week to catch it, and you figure those 15 years of seasoning come along for the ride. They don't. The day that money lands in a brand new Roth IRA, the clock on the earnings snaps back to zero. 15 years erased. A Roth 401k runs on its own clock that has never once spoken to the Roth IRA clock. And the IRA's clock starts the instant it receives its first dollar. So Halvard, 66, rolls $380,000 out of a 15-year-old Roth 401k into a new IRA. And now he's staring down a 5-year freeze before he can pull a cent of the earnings tax-free. He did everything by the book and got himself locked out of his own growth for half a decade. What stings is how cheap the fix is. The earnings clock, remember, only has to clear one time across every Roth IRA you'll ever hold. So if you'd opened any Roth IRA years back, $50 in it or $100, and it can even be closed by now, that old account already crossed the 5 years, and the rollover inherits the finished clock. It counts as qualified the second it lands. There's a version of this where you're younger and under 59 and a half, and the rollover comes over as a non-qualified distribution. In that case, the contributions and the earnings keep their separate identities and drop into the matching buckets in the IRA, so at least your contributions stay reachable. But the clean outcome is the one worth setting up, and it runs you $100 handled years early. 2 people retire the same week off identical 15-year Roth 401k accounts. One of them quietly opened a Roth IRA back at some point, dropped $100 in it, and forgot the thing existed. The other never set one up. On day one, the first can touch every dollar, growth included. The second sits frozen out of the growth for 5 years. Same money, same age. One throwaway $100 deposit made years earlier is the whole distance between them. If there's a Roth in your plan at work and you've never opened a Roth IRA, that is the move. And it's not a hard call. Open one, put $100 in, walk away. You just started a clock that shields every Roth IRA you'll ever own. That clock doesn't even stop when you do. Inherit a Roth, and the original owner's 5-year timer comes attached to the money. Linnea inherits her father's Roth. He opened it 3 years before he passed, so the account has 2 years left to finish aging. She assumes it's a tax-free inheritance. It's a Roth, after all, and starts pulling the earnings. Inside that 2-year gap, the growth she takes out gets taxed at her ordinary income rate. The contributions and the converted money are still hers, free and clear. It's the earnings, and only the earnings, stuck in that unfinished window. That trap closes on grieving people over and over because money that lands in your lap tends to leave fast, and it leaves fastest when you never needed it to begin with. Spend the earnings early. Eat the tax. No 10% penalty on an inherited Roth, by the way, whatever the heir's age. That much the government leaves alone. What's left is the income tax on growth that hasn't cleared 5 years. A second clock sits on top of inherited Roths, and this one has real teeth. Under the Secure Act, Most non-spouse heirs who inherit a Roth from someone who died in 2020 or later have to empty the entire account inside 10 years of the death. Here's the part that gets buried. You owe no yearly minimum along the way because the original owner never had to take one while alive. So you can let the balance ride untouched and growing tax-free and clean it out in year 10 if that's smarter. Blow past the deadline though, and the IRS can drop a 25% excise tax on whatever's left, cut to 10% if you fix it inside 2 years. Savage price for missing a date on a calendar. A handful of heirs get to skip the 10-year drain and stretch withdrawals across their own lifetime instead. A minor child of the owner can. So can someone disabled or chronically ill or anyone less than 10 years younger than the person who died. Everyone else is on the clock. Spouses get the most room of all. Inherit from a husband or wife, and you can fold the Roth into your own and run it under your own rules, with no 10-year countdown anywhere in sight. Better still, a surviving spouse who rolls it in gets to use whichever 5-year clock helps more, the deceased's or their own. Or you keep it as an inherited account and ride the deceased's clock, though then you can't add a dollar to it. For most people, the first path is the clean one. Back to Renata. She owes nothing. The 30 grand was conversion money. She's 63. The penalty was never real to begin with. Her preparer just has to open Form 8606, the form that logs what you contributed and what you converted, along with every distribution you take, and fill it in the way it should have been filled the first time. The IRS doesn't hand that form back to you preloaded with your figures. The brokerage won't reconstruct it on your behalf. If you've ever run a conversion, the paper proving what you already paid tax on belongs to you to hold, and the day you can't produce it is the day a withdrawal you counted as free becomes a fight you can lose. So if you carry one thing out of all of this, a Roth sitting in your 401k at work paired with no Roth IRA on the side means you open a Roth IRA this week and drop $100 into it. 10 minutes online at any big brokerage. That single deposit starts a 5-year clock that can never be unwound. And 5 years out, when you finally roll that workplace Roth over, it lands clean instead of frozen solid. $100 now, or $380,000 of your own money sitting untouchable for 5 years because you couldn't be bothered.